Welcome to this video on lists and tuples. So this is another data type that we are learning in the course, and this is the first data type that can hold multiple values. So we also call it a compound data type. And the syntax looks as follows. We encapsulate all the values with square brackets on the left and the right hand side, and we store multiple values. And these multiple values are separated by commas, as you can see here. And again, we have multiple data types. So we have a float here, we have a string, we have an integer, and we even have lists stored in a list. So actually the length of that list is 4 because the fourth element is another list, and that other list has the length 2. Right? So we have 4 different fields, and one field is even a list in a list, a nested list. So what do you think is meant when I say this compound data type is ordered? It's meaning that we maintain an order. If you store that variable and you put an element on the position of the first position with the index 0, it will stay there forever. Or until you delete it or change the order. But at least in memory, it's really stored by its order and not randomly or arbitrarily changed during the runtime of your program. So what do you think is the type of mylist, as it encompasses so many different data types now? And the answer to this question is yes, of course, it's an own data type. Yeah, we have that data type list. And even though we have different data types stored here, the data type is list. So let's have a look on the next slide regarding the indexing of lists. A list comes with indices as follows. So this is our example list. And as you can see on the right-hand side, there is an index going from left to right, incrementing, starting from 0, not from 1. Very important, we always start from 0. So the first field has the index 0, the second field has the index 1, and so on and so forth. But we also have another index that is counting from the right-hand side, and this is a negative index. It starts from the right-hand side, but not with 0 anymore, because 0 is already we already have that at the first position. We start with a -1, and then -2, -3, -4, -5 in this case. So why do we have 2 indices? It's very important in very long lists that you can also access the last field or the field before the last field, and without knowing or getting the length of the list, you can easily get the last or the element before the last element. So if you want to access such an item, you can have your list and then the square brackets, and then you would just name the index. In this case, it's a 0. So we are selecting the first field that has the index 0, but also -5 at the same time. And we are going to select the 3 here, and we are getting back the 3. This is how indexing works. You can also use other indices, but also like a -1 or -2. Any other indices that are available here you can use to retrieve your element. So regarding tuples, this is usually we have lists that change heavily during runtime. Yeah? When I say order is maintained, this means the order is maintained in memory, but you can manipulate that order. You can manipulate all the items, you can append items, you can delete items, you can change the value of an item. But all of this is not possible when you have tuples. They are not mutable, they are immutable, they are unchangeable. And tuples are very similar to lists. The only difference in the syntax is you're not using square brackets, you're using parentheses, and then you have a tuple. It's an own data type, a data type that is immutable. And just like lists, fields are separated with comma, but again, we are encapsulating our list. That is not a list anymore, it's a tuple, we encapsulate it with parentheses. And very important now, that changing elements will lead to an error. So if you write something like this, my tuple of 3, we already know that this is the element with the string C. If you are going to overwrite it with a command like this, we are going to have an error, because a tuple again you can't change it. So sometimes when you program, you need a list that is unchangeable, that you don't want to change its value over runtime, then you come up with a tuple and you can achieve that. So let's have a look at the table of all the data types that we learn about in the course. So we have an entry for list and for tuple, and the abbreviation that Python is using is very easy because it's the same as the name, just list and tuples, and both are ordered. The lists are mutable, you can change them. The tuples are immutable, you can't change them, but both can hold arbitrary items of arbitrary data type. And examples are shown here. The only difference is the lists are using square brackets, the tuples are using parentheses. And this is also how the detection works, how Python automatically sees which data type you are using here. I'm opening Jupyter Notebook now, where I'm going to show you a small example on lists. So again, we can define them as follows with the square brackets, and then we come up with different elements like this. So let's just access some of the fields here like this. I'm going to have the index 2, try to guess which element is going to be retrieved. Exactly, it's the C. So we are starting from the left hand side because it's a positive index 0, 1, 2, and then we get the C. We can also get the C by -1. Again, -1 is start to count from the right hand side, -1, -2, and so on. So we also get the C because it's the last field. Let's use the field in the center here, the index -2. It would be also index 1, and we are going to have a new value here. So this is how you can override fields in a list. And let's print my lists as follows, and you can see the center has a new field. Let's just check if tuples are immutable. So if I'm coming up with a tuple here, so I'm simply changing the square brackets to parentheses, then I have a tuple. And if I try to override that field in that tuple now, the Python interpreter gives me the type error. Tuple object does not support item assignment. So this is it for this video. In the next video, we are going to take a look on advanced slicing, that is actually indexing, but with some more possibilities. So stay tuned.